What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. Once again, my name is Dwayne Pate. My co-host, brother EJ Stewart. Thank you to one of our sponsors, J Pope and Associates, who really kind of helped us launch this effort and just kind of promote this positivity of African American men. Once again, we seek to just highlight the different stories of African American men and how they've reached their level of success. And we have another great guest on today, Brother Larry Poncho Brown. And we're going to turn it over to him because I know he's ready to give us a little bit of background by himself and tell us a little bit more about what it is that he does.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing? My name is Larry Poncho Brown. Excuse the explosion in my studio, but this is a real studio. This is not a green screen black background, y'all. I've been a professional artist for 40 years, born and raised in Baltimore City. I've been a full-time artist since I was 17 years old. I started off as a graphic designer. I started off as a sign painter. Then I morphed into a graphic designer. Then I morphed into an illustrator. Then I morphed into a fine artist. So I've been through many journeys in the same realm, but have been really, I've been really fortunate to have taken the turns that I've taken in my art career. So things have really been going well. This year I celebrate my 40th year. We're doing a retrospective of my work later in the fall. So that's kind of my background, man. I'm a second generation artist. My father was an artist. My son is the third generation. He's now 31, so he's an artist too. But he does music, he does art, and he does acting. But I've always been exposed to the arts. I went to Carver Vocational Technical High School, in the real Carver, not that one out there. Not that one out there. You know which one I'm talking about.
You talking about the one in the county?
I'm talking about the one you got to duck bullets to get in the building. That's where I went, right?
Yeah, you
but
were
it set me up though, man, because Carver was instrumental in really kicking out a lot of black entrepreneurs. It was a time when you could go there, not graduate from high school, open your own business, and so many people did that. My father did that. You know what I'm saying? My sister went to Mergenthaler, which was over on the other side of town. And she studied cosmetology, and to this day, that started her off. So I'm just saying, the vocational education piece has been crucial to my success. If it wasn't for that, I can't say where I would be. I had a really strong. I had a 6'6" teacher with a 6-inch afro for a commercial art teacher. So he kept me off the streets. But better than that, you know, they've been trying to get rid of vocational education in the city for a very, very long time. For that reason, it's because it empowers us to do other things. They're trying to control the freedom that we have, even in the interests that we have. So I say all that to say that Carver was a turning point for me. It was really my launching pad because I got my first job at 14 there. We did a 3-year program there where you were supposed to learn lettering, in the essence of lettering and composition and design, for 3 years, your junior year, and then your senior year, they would put you in work study. Well, I learned it in 3 months. So they were forced to try to figure out whether they should put this 10th grader into work study, which was the first time they had to really deal with that. And I was still kind of a knucklehead too. So it was a risk factor involved. Do we take this chance? I'm glad they took the chance, man, because it forever changed my life. So that's my humble beginnings here in Baltimore. While other folks was getting into mischief, I always had to while my friends were selling drugs, I was slinging paint. You know, it saved my life. It kept me off the streets. And then so I lucked up at my last year there. They were going to give me a scholarship. I didn't know what a scholarship was. I didn't.
Gotcha.
They just said, hey, you got a scholarship to Maryland Institute. So I'm like, well, tell me more about this. And at first I had no desire to go to college. I was like, 12 years? You got... I barely got me through 12. You know what I'm saying? So I took a chance on a dare from my high school teacher. He said, this is it. This is the crossroad. You're going to try to change your trajectory or keep the one you got. And so I took it. And it forever changed my life, man. So that's my humble beginnings.
Awesome. Now you spoke, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but you spoke about your dad being, you know, an artist as well. Can you talk to us about like growing up with your dad and like that influence on you, and what kind of principles did he kind of give you to kind of move to where you are now?
Well, first off, my father was a teenage parent.
Mm.
So it wasn't like he sat me on his lap and said, "Yo, brother, this is how life works." We were growing
Right.
up together.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
My dad was an artist, but you're talking about the 50. He was born in 45. You're talking about the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
50s and 60s. He didn't have no opportunities to do no art. It was just a tough thing to do. So he transitioned out of art into printing,
Mm.
and went real basically about 28 years without painting before he ventured back. By that time, I had found great success in the arts, and then he tried to come and take advantage of that opening, but didn't realize this is not a game.
Mm-hmm.
This is some real stuff right here. So my dad was frustrated, and so what happened is, by him being a frustrated artist, rather than him nurturing me to continue doing art, I think he spent a lot of time trying to trick me out of it because he didn't want me to be as frustrated as he was without having the outlets.
Mm.
And that was a little bit of a downer because that was my developmental years. So, but I had a mother, man. She would put stuff on the outside of the refrigerator and inside of the refrigerator. She just was, she was supporting me. That's not to say that's how we started. By the time my father passed, I couldn't find a better supporter. Both of my parents were cheerleading for me. And so, you got relationships go through twists and turns, but I think you have to lead by example rather than whining about the things you think you want to see happen. You got to make things happen in order to make people, see the possibilities sometimes.
Absolutely.
And coming up in that time, you mentioned, your friends were into the streets and the drugs. What was it about art that kept you out of that lifestyle, and how did your surroundings even influence your art?
Well, first of all, one thing guys learn early in life is what they're good at and what they're not good at. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't particularly the best athlete in the world. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really slaying the girls. So art was kind of like my silent friend. You talking about black and white TVs. You talking
Right.
about don't touch the furniture. I'm a baby boomer. I'm a lot older than I look. So you talking about there were some basic things that happened that art was easy to levitate to. So um, my surroundings, well, black people colorful, so I ain't never got to worry about subjects for pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I have to figure out what not to paint because sometimes it's a little too grown for school. You know what I'm saying? But
Indeed.
no, Baltimore flavor, man. I mean, there's just a flavor here that is the undercurrent of my work. People say it looks unique. It's supposed to look unique. Every artist's viewpoint is unique. But I like to think that my Baltimore upbringing shows up in my work.
Mm.
Indeed. Baby boomer. Wow.
Yeah,
Had me
Baby
fooled,
boomer is
champ.
defined. Baby boomer is defined from 1945 to 1965.
Yeah, you had me fooled there, champ.
I know a lot
I
of people
didn't see
feel
that
about it. That's
coming.
why I had to remind them, like I was telling my man, Mr. Pay earlier, as soon as I got all this down to earth tech stuff down,
gotcha.
I'm doing better. I'm doing better than most 60-year-olds. I tell you that. But it's a different time. But I came through a different time.
Yeah, and you talked about the vocational aspect, the vocational piece, and how important it is. Have you been involved in any movements or any situations to try to promote the importance of that in the school system today? Because it's a total different time, but
Now,
you're
man,
living proof of what it could be.
bro, let me explain something to you. The one thing that my high school teacher made me do from the time I was in school was he made me mentor other students. So if I was doing that well in the 10th grade with lettering, he had me teaching 12th graders how to letter. When I graduated and went to Micah, it's like, yo, no, man, every month, come back to the school, tell the kids what you're doing. And
Mm.
so this whole act of mentorship, paying it forward, that was an important part of my whole thing. So I'm an artist. I was raised pretty much as an artist advocate, but I was also raised with mentorship. Even my own father was a coach. He was a track coach. He was a wrestling coach. And he would have the thug guys in the neighborhood. He would take out 2 sets of gloves. He would draw a square in the street, and he would make them fight each other. And he gained a certain amount of respect because he had that coaching mentality, that how do I translate this energy into something that was athletic, that was something that was challenging but not threatening. So a lot of that was my upbringing. And so I mentored, and I people would think I was exaggerating. I've mentored thousands of artists since I was in 10th grade. And it's still an important part of my development even today. So when it comes to vocational education, see, they were trying to get rid of what my dad was in school. He also graduated from Carver. Okay. So I've watched these waves of vocational education being in vogue and out of vogue. And right now they're threatening. They've already closed the commercial art department at Carver. They're getting ready to close cosmetology at Carver. Now, come on, y'all. Y'all from Baltimore.
Well,
I'm from New York, but
it doesn't matter. You still know what you see in Baltimore. You know, hair salons are everywhere. So how can you tell me all of a sudden that cosmetology is no longer relevant or that commercial art is not relevant? There's some algorithm stuff being played right now with what they support and what they don't support. And so that's why vocational education is under attack. Because I think all kids should learn a trade. I don't care what city you live in, you know? Unfortunately, it's beginning to change. They're trying to groom us to be more academically inclined. That was part of the reason why they got rid of art and music and dance anyway, because they were moving towards technology, computers, and they didn't keep them all together. They separated. And so this is just another agenda, I believe, to keep us at bay. Because we, vocational education had us doing all kinds of stuff. It was based on the premise that they had classes of everything that you would deal with. It was dry cleaning, food service. You know, they had cosmetology. I mean, bricklaying. They had auto repair. They had television repair. They had all kinds of stuff. Electric. I mean, you hear what I'm saying? All the things that we survive from every day, you would learn in vocational education. So why is it all of a sudden that's not in vogue anymore?
Yeah, I'm glad we touched on this up there because I was listening to something. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was like, you know, the system is not meant for us to be creatives. It's meant for us to be workers. They want us to work a 9 to 5 and spend 40 years on a job just to say, "Oh, that's good." But that don't have nothing to do with creatives. That has more to do with the business structure. They want us all to be employees. Right.
So being a creative is something that nobody can control. You know,
but if you have that mindset of, if they already get you in that mindset of being a worker, then sometimes I believe some of us get into that mindset and don't tap into the creativity that we do have.
I believe that too, but you got to remember, you're talking to somebody that's done it this whole life. So I'm the one that didn't make excuses for not doing it.
Gotcha.
A lot of us make excuses for why we don't do what we do. That's BS. The bottom line is that a creative, when you're born a creative, you are as free as you're going to be with whatever medium that is. And if you let other things stop you from doing that, that speaks more to you than it does your craft. You know, they don't need what I do. My stuff is not bread, butter, or gas and electric, but I'm still relevant.
Right.
And I've survived times when things were slim because it's that relevant. And I've heard a lot of people tell me, you know, art, you can't make no money. I've defied everything that people ever told me was not true or told me was true.
I was going to ask you, in 40 years, how did you maintain that bravery to go through the ups and downs, the cultural changes, the stigmas, the standards? How did you maintain that braveness to survive through it all?
Look, man, I don't know. Something's wrong with me, first of all. I think my brain is put in backwards because I'm like this, man. We were stolen from Africa, brought to this country, and only the strongest of us made it to this continent. And only the strongest of us, if it wasn't for the strongest of us, I would not be here. So it's not like Poncho sat down and came up with some evil scheme of how he was going to continue doing this. Perseverance is in us. We just got to direct it the right place. You know, we're in an excuse-driven time frame now where everybody comes up with every other reason of why, and everybody want to add their emotions to all their decisions. There's no rational thought anymore. There's no scripted, intentional plans to anything anymore. You know, so my thing is, I just basically got out of the way. I knew immediately this is something I could do, and I ain't got to hurt nobody to do it. And I found a way to get paid from it. And I just multiplied my efforts. And so I'd rather be a slow moving train than a no moving train. Because you can pick whatever speed you want to move. But I was very, very aggressive at, hey, I'm going to do this because I can't do anything else.
Right.
But I also made a pact to myself after going to Maryland Institute because I wasn't college ready when I went to Maryland Institute. I went to Maryland Institute, man. They put me in English 101. Insulting, man. Like, how you gonna put me in English 101? I was at Carver. I was on work study. I was getting 90s without studying. I get to Maryland Institute and they tell me you got to go to English 101. I was so embarrassed, man. But I'm like, okay, if that's the challenge you got to face, fine. So they put me in English 101. And the funny thing that happened was they have a high white student population, but in English 101, it was all the foreign students. They were there to learn it as a second or third language. So they didn't know whether I spoke one language or not. Matter of fact, they thought I was cool because they didn't know whether I spoke another language.
Wow.
But what it did was it gave me a chance to kind of catch up with myself academically. I'm the kind of guy that once I start something, I'm going to finish it. It's that simple. It got tough. I thought about bailing out because I wasn't in school because my parents paid my way to go. I was there on a dare. And I was there because I had a feeling I could make it through. And luckily, when I got in there, I just applied myself. Then vocational education had me ahead of the game because when I went to my studio classes, I was ahead of all the other students because of what I learned in high school. And I was already had a list of clients that was helping paying my way through school. So I was doing signs while they were eating apples and reading books over lunch. I was knocking out sign jobs like I was dealing drugs.
Wow.
So it's about a mentality. Baltimore, you got to kind of have a little bit of a hustler grind here. If you can survive in Baltimore, you can survive anywhere. Because see, Baltimore don't care what you're doing. It's not a pretentious town. We don't have enough sophistication to be pretentious here. You know, but Baltimore is the perfect home base for me. Because people don't know I'm here. They think I live in New York somewhere or California somewhere. You know, and so what I'm saying is Baltimore's got it's got a rich culture, but that culture thing is kind of weird when you start having that discussion. What does that actually mean? And if you said Baltimore's got a culture, then what is it?
Right.
But you could do that in any city. You know what cultures we deal with, and they're real. They're real, and they're not always pretty.
Absolutely. So tell us the story behind the name Poncho.
Yeah.
The only reason why I'm going to answer this because y'all both handsome little guys is the most frequently asked question, but it also points to the time I was raised. There used to be a show on TV called The Cisco Kid that came out in the 1950s. And me and my dad used to watch The Cisco Kid, and he had a sidekick named Poncho. And I was a junior. Try signing Larry O'Neal Brown Jr. on the bottom of a painting, and you'll switch to Poncho quick. And remember, my dad was an artist too, so I had to kind of find something to separate our two identities. And Poncho was it. I'm gonna be 99 years old. Pope gonna still be calling me Poncho because I branded that name like crazy.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Where's your art taking you? I mean, you're talking 40 years. Who have you met, painted for? Tell us some stories about the times that you've been through, with your art and where it's taken you.
Man, you don't have enough time for that. I will tell you this. I've met some fantastic people. I've traveled the world doing my art. I guess the most pivotal person I could mention is Dick Gregory. I met Dick Gregory in the mid 80s. I went to one of his lectures. I had been admiring his work and admiring his word. Another friend of mine was into nutrition, so we were going to go and we were going to bum rush Dick Gregory at one of his concerts, and we were going to give him some promotional materials. So we go, we hear his act, hear his comedy. He's got this comedy thing. He's got this real life thing he does. So at the end, we went up. I handed him a little small portfolio of my work. My buddy sent him some of his nutritional stuff, and we were walking out of the auditorium. And just before we got to the door, Dick Gregory said, hey, brothers, come back. So I went to the front, and he flipped through my portfolio. He said, hey, man, did you do this work? And I said, yes, sir, this is what I've been doing. He says, well, I got a project you can work on. Talk to my people and call up so-and-so tomorrow. And I got a job that night working with Dick Gregory. I worked with him for 6 years. This Dick Gregory Bohemian Diet Plan, if you look at any of that art that was in Ebony Essence of Jet magazines, I was the one that did all those illustrations. So, no, I met some people. He was the first celebrity to really, truly endorse what I did. I also met the guy that we can't talk about too much anymore. My heaviest name on my portfolio for the longest time was Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
I've since changed it to Camille Cosby.
Wow.
But I did some stuff with him over at Morgan State University. He has a couple of my pieces. And he just one of those sometimes things in history change, and it becomes a point that you have to kind of watch how you deal with it. You know what I'm saying? So I've met a lot of really good people. I've been very, very fortunate. The whole TV genre, when the Bill Cosby Show came on in the 90s, in the late 80s, I got some placement on a couple of the shows. I got placements on a couple of TV shows, and that turned to placements on movies. So, my name circulated pretty fast. There was also a big, big explosion that came as a result of the Bill Cosby Show. If you could think back to Good Times and JJ and the work that was on that show, that was done by Ernie Barnes. See, and then you fast forward to the Bill Cosby era, where they had Varney and Honeywood and Brenda Joyce and all these Ellis Wilson, all these people on the walls. That was it was a catalyst to a big art explosion that really no one coined a phrase for it till recently. And so you had hundreds of artists that became mainstream celebrities pretty much following this trek of shows. I mean, the things that were happening with media and movies, and it was just a crazy, crazy, crazy time. 9/11 and the recession that came after that made the whole art business implode. But that before that period, man, it was a major, major art revolution going on. The Cosby Show and media changed everything. See, the difference between Good Times and the Good Times era was that you couldn't find that work anywhere. And printing technology hadn't advanced to a point where we could even afford to do reproductions. By the time the Cosby Show came out, there had been 2 or 3 printing revolutions. And again, my father went into printing, so I was aware of those things. And it made it possible for me to start producing my work. And so what I did was I started a company publishing African-American art for the art industry. And that really changed things. I had 3,000 galleries all over the country that were ordering African-American work for their businesses. And that was directly attributed to what we now call the golden age of African-American art, because it was the first time that artists became mainstream. Black art became a genre in the art business. And it was the first time artists really were able to say, hey, I'm surviving off of just my art.
That's wow. Beautiful.
So it's a lot of stuff, a lot of small pieces, but that's kind of the backbone to what was available during that time.
And Dick Gregory and even Mr. Cosby, you're talking about 2 people that were unapologetically who they were, and it just your presence in how you are, it speaks to that place and time. And it's just funny because I'm not so much into art now, but I appreciate the past element of art, the graffiti and all those different things. Where were you in that era, being an older gentleman, far as that graffiti movement and the hip hop movement and the music? Where did you fall in that?
Well, see, I'm that interesting age because I'm at the bottom end of the baby boomer thing. So I'm 59 now. I'll be 60 on my birthday. So man, I was at Maryland Institute. I had my little flight suit on. I was doing my breaking and my locking and shit. So yeah, I'm just old enough now to have lived through the 80s, the 90s, and have that impact, the stuff that I was doing, watching hip hop start from like what, Sugar Hill Gang, but I can also remember Funky Drummer from my man James Brown, because my dad was playing that stuff. So I saw all these beginning points to hip hop. Those things influenced my work too. And so it's just like all these things are related. And, I just get out the way and record it the best way that I can.
That's awesome.
What would you say is like, I know because you said you have experience in many different areas of art. What has been your most favorite, I guess, genre or thing to cultivate in the art industry or art field?
All right, so the golden age of African American art one of the main components of that is that we were commercially successful artists. So we're not talking about going to the Walters and in the art industry embracing us as fine artists. It wasn't that. This was us creating affordable art that people could take in their homes. And that was like, oh man, we made a lot of people mad because we didn't need reps, we didn't need galleries, we didn't need nobody trying to dictate what we did. Many of us became 6- and 7-figure artists just by publishing our own work and distributing our own work. I currently have works in about 500,000 homes as a result of that whole movement up to now. And so many artists now, there's a lot of different avenues with social network and all this other stuff. But to have that kind of a following is pretty crazy. That's how intense that movement was. We were all making affordable art. All of the art venues were happening in the communities. There were Black galleries opening in the communities. There were art shows happening in all the big malls and all the big venues. I mean, it was just a whole crazy thing. There was probably 10 art distributors, and I was one of 5 artists. Charles Bibbs, Cynthia St. James, the late Albert Fennell, and Kenneth Gatewood were the first Black artists signed to a white publisher, which started ways because the biggest Black company was Things Graphic and Fine Arts. And Edward Robinson, man, he was the first person to really blow African-American art up. He was the reason why so much of our work got shown on TV shows and other places. So, no, man, I came along at just the right time, bro. I tell everybody, it wasn't like Poncho came up with an evil scheme and was a mastermind. Sometimes you come along at just the right time where technology and media and all these things fuse together and you just explode. And I rode that wave because most of my peers are 15 to 20 years older than me.
Wow. And you mentioned that this has been 40 years of work. What are you doing? What do you have planned to highlight that time and highlight your story? Because we probably don't have enough time, but what are you doing? What do you have planned to put out there to talk about this journey you've had?
Well, I was diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago. So, of course, you stop thinking long term. You start thinking short term. You start thinking about legacy. Y'all gonna get a peek at my book. This is the 40th retrospective book that's just coming back from overseas. This book has 305 images that were published over that period of time. And this is going to be out probably this summer. Okay. So this has been designed. It's just getting back. You looking at the first finished proof of this book.
Wow.
Also, I'm working on a film called The Golden Age of African American Art, which highlights that whole chapter I just told you about. Because see, all of that happened pre-social networking.
Right.
So that means we were making all this money and we was moving and grooving and nobody documented it. Equipment was expensive, all of that. So then you flip 20 years, the equipment becomes inexpensive. Media is like easy to partake in. And so because my peers were 15 to 20 years older than me, and I started hearing them all complaining about, hey, man, they act like we're not relevant. They act like we didn't contribute to what's happening with the African-American art market, man. And they cursing. I'm like, well, hey, man, I'm getting it. That's what I should be doing. So I started this back in 2018. We're now editing that film. We're looking at big players like Netflix and these other folks. We got it so it could be episodic. But it's like, that's what's up. It's like now there's so many things that's happening that you, as an artist, you don't have to just be at your easel or at your, wherever you sculpt or whatever your medium is. You can now, everybody's forced to be multimedia. Everybody.
Absolutely.
When I came through school, you could be a specialist. But now everybody's got to know a little bit of photography. They got to know a little bit of audio. They got to know a little bit of video. And so now everybody's now branching to all these great areas. Yes, it's an equal playing field, but yes, it's a golden time. This is the best time to be a creative. If you have a vision and now you can afford the equipment to do it, the only things left is what your intestinal fortitude is. Because there's a lot of people bullshit. They coming up with ideas and concepts and theories, but they ain't working. They're not working. And they're introspective. So they thinking. Thinking is nothing. Thinking is zero. Until you bring an idea to fruition, until you multiply that thing to expand your reach, then you're just thinking. And so that's the biggest disconnect I see now. You see, I'm driven, man. The playing field is so wide that it stimulates me. But I'm looking at people sometimes and I go, wow, take an enema, please.
Right.
Yeah, because you're moving too slow. You said it yourself, Mr. Stewart. We don't have as much time as we think.
Mm-mm.
And we're thinking too long. And we're thinking again. See, being a baby boom, I didn't have a phone up against my head.
Mm-hmm.
My whole life wasn't on a stream here and a stream there. We weren't distracted by stuff. So it's easy for me to separate the new world that we're in. I look at my son. I don't know how he makes it. I just don't know. He was born when I was 27. That's the generation and a half away. Whole different set of circumstances. Whole different way of processing the world. So when you start talking about being unapologetic black man, what does that actually mean? We've been unapologetic for a while. We were just justifying what we were doing. Everybody now is living unapologetically, but that sounds cool until you realize that being unapologetic can make you a rude, crude person too. What does it mean? Does it mean not judge? For me, being unapologetic is not justifying myself to people and to letting them see who I am by my deeds. That's what unapologetic means. And it doesn't mean I'm going to stomp on necks and throats to get where I'm going to get. You know?
It's your work. It's your journey.
It's your journey. It's your work. But again, man, it's like it's an action-oriented thing. It's not just a talk thing. Everybody want to talk now. I get tired of talking.
Well, we appreciate you talking tonight.
Well, I don't mean it like that. But then again, I'm not going to be real. That does come into it. It's like there's so much talking going on. It has this place because now, man, I never knew what Nina Simone was. I never really understood who Baldwin was. So now you got all these stories and these narratives coming out and this media stuff coming out, just informing us in a way that we've never been informed before.
Right.
So what's the happy medium? Because we're all distracted like crazy. Both of y'all sleep with your phones on. I don't. No, we're living in a different continuum, you know? So my thing is that's to me, what does it mean? What do we hope to gain from it? I like the fact that brothers now can talk about subjects and we don't have to be thin-skinned about it no more. It was all ego, it was testosterone, it was no meat, it was just, I love the fact that now we can have real conversations about things and nod at each other and go, yeah, I see that. Yeah, I feel that. You know, Absolutely. So that's where I'm in now. It's like, hey man, if you're not educating, teaching, sharing your gift to somebody, then you're basically talking to yourself.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why I do this kind of stuff, because you never know who's going to see it. You don't know who's going to get struck by one of the things one of the three of us have to say.
I'm excited to I hope you guys get, where you want to go with that work, because I'm excited to see and I'm not sure if it's going to be a lot of documentary based or
it's a documentary. Matter of fact, we got a pre-trailer to it on YouTube. Look up Golden Age of African American Art or go to the Golden Age of African American Art website. And you can see the pre-trailer to what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'm excited,
Yeah, so it's been crazy, man. I mean, and this is the current time, right? So to do my book, academia used to be responsible for doing books. Who is worthy? Who do we pick? Who's worthy? And it's based on their stature. So if you went to my HBCU and we're doing okay, maybe this person or a gallery or museum will go, well, these people are the people we think are it. I put my book up on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I'm telling you, Kickstarter is like a crowdfunding site. If y'all don't know about it, y'all need to wake up, stop sleeping. So what I did was I got a following, an immense following. I put this book up, and at first I just asked for $10,000 to get it started. I figured I was going to put the other 10 or 15,000 to it myself, right? Put this project up online, $34,000 in less than 90 days.
Wow.
My people paid for that book. Now, I've been waiting till flowers was growing out of my chest for anybody in this region to find me worthy enough to publish a book about Larry Poncho Brown.
Wow.
But that's the kind of time we're living in now. Between that, back in the day, they would go, well, Larry, who's going to distribute it? Well, what publisher? I ain't got to worry about none of that. If I tell you my work is in 500,000 homes and I got 2,000 books, what do you think is going to happen?
You're going to get traction. You're going to get moving.
It's going to get moving. And it's going to get moving through people that already support me. So the whole thing of being dependent on what people do and say, that's the power of the time we live in. You can galvanize a group of people that's going to follow what you're doing. If they trust what you're saying, if you're authentic, they're going to follow you for life. You got to kill somebody for them to switch up on you. And even then, they're going to stick with you and send you some cigarettes.
Put some money on your books.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But that's the kind of time we live in. And so the more you look at that and look at what your opportunities are, we got to stop looking at the confines of what we think control is. And my thing is that we always wait for somebody to do something for us. We wait for somebody. We wait for something to fall out the sky and present this opening that we've been waiting for. That ain't real. We got to create it. That's what being a creative is. A creative is not just me putting paint on a canvas. A creative is somebody who's looking at a visionary way to make this thing be relevant in the world that we live in. So here we go. COVID-19 hit. I went to U-Haul, got me some boxes and some tape. Because I was like, yeah, this is it. They shut stuff down. They shut all the shows down all over the country. You know, I had to figure out what I was going to do. I panicked. I got to be honest. I panicked. Do you know that year I made more money than I made the last 2 decades?
Wow.
Because of this medium. I got online. I started doing a show. I started showing 50 items on the show. I had one show where we did $10,000 from one 1-hour show. Now, I'm not saying that happened with all the shows I've done, but that's showing you just what was happening around that time. But even if I made $400, it's still different than me packing up my van with a couple $1,000 worth of stuff, a couple £1,000 worth of stuff, going state to state, because that's how the golden age of African American was governed. You had to get in your car, drive to California. You went to Chicago. You went to Louisiana. You went to Texas. You went to California. You went to, you had to move. All of us were moving. I had 36 shows a year. That's 3 times a month where I was traveling.
Wow.
And so now with this medium, I just turned my microphone on for 1 hour, crack a few stupid jokes, show a few pieces, and I can stay right here in this room. So Art has been like quarantined long before this quarantine thing happened. I was happy. But I'm just telling you how the times work. When you start talking about this whole thing of what media represents, what a following represents, once you got certain things in place, man, you still just got to design what's next. So I appreciate your question, what's next? Those are the 2 things that's next. But guess what? Both of those things were outside of my comfort zone, too. I could have just stayed in here and finished painting little pictures and had my dealers come and had my little, but doing a book was not something I ever did before. Doing a film? No.
No. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
But it's available to everybody to do.
That's true. We all have the same opportunity. We just got to have, like you said, we got to have the perseverance.
You got to be a visionary, and you got to keep on pressing the boundaries of your comfort zone.
That's good. Absolutely. I'm definitely going to tune in and check that out and look at the trailer.
And my thing is that you say I don't really know about art. Yes, you do. You know about the kind of art you want to know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Art is a big, broad word now. Everybody call themselves actors, call themselves artists. You have a creative thing. I could look at you, man. Your way you slick your eyebrows down. Show me that you got something going. You got something going over there. You might not be walking into the Walters Art Gallery, but that don't mean you're not art.
No,
that's just to walk past you with that dress on and she got that behind swinging. You are understanding art.
you ain't
so my thing is that, man, we got to stop downing ourselves for what we don't think we have, man. We utilize a lot of stuff. People copy off of us, man. Everybody want to be black, but they don't want to be black.
Mm-hmm.
That's for
They
sure.
like our style. You don't believe me? Turn the sound off and watch the TV.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what channel it is. You're gonna see Black culture show up everywhere.
Absolutely.
It always has. It always will.
Absolutely.
And so art is not defined by pretty pictures on the wall. Art is a little teeny word that means a lot of stuff. All you have to do is have an appreciation for it. That's why we used to have art appreciation classes that we don't have anymore.
Mm.
But look at the stuff when you're going through your little, going through your Insta. You're gonna be looking at a lot of art. You might not react, you might not like, but you're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then you saw it and go, yeah, I kind of like that.
Right.
So now it's being shown to you in a way that you might be would have never went into the museum. But seeing that and seeing enough of it, that if you see a group of people outside of a building going into a gallery, you might get out your car.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how this thing works, man.
And are there any other plans to have any active galleries up prior to the release of the film and the book and everything? Are there any plans?
Oh yeah, well, I have affiliations with quite a few galleries. All of them are kind of already in line for the book. We've been promoting it. Really started promoting it after we got the printed copy of it back. So I got book signings already lined up through the fall. I have an art retrospective that's going to be happening in conjunction with the book release this fall. Right here in Kinston, Maryland, a place called the Sabra Fourth Cultural Center. This is a 2-story tall cultural center, and I'm gonna fill the place up with art. They're gonna keep it up from November through January. So there are a lot of little components of things that I'm doing now to prepare for the end of the year.
And the art is still affordable, as you said in the past, or is it?
Oh, you wanted that? I see you smirking. I understand.
I just want to know.
I'm not hating on you, brother. I understand.
I just want to know.
All right, let me tell you about art. Art is not always expensive, but you know what? If you see a pair of shoes you want, you ain't gonna ask nothing about how much it costs. You ain't gonna smirk either. You gonna go. You know how much you can spend, and sometimes you're gonna spend it just because you want them shoes on your feet. Now, I might be using that analogy wrong for Mr. Stewart, okay? But what I'm saying is that analogy is the truth. And so what happens is that we got to stop putting things in these lanes. When you see music you want, you get it. You see something you want, you look. When you go to the car spot, you're gonna get what you like and what you can afford. All right, so I got works that sell anywhere from $5 on up to $25,000, $40,000. I don't have no separators, because you never know who's doing what. But I do know people buy what they want to buy.
Absolutely.
And I'm the first person to know when the world is having financial problems because they don't need what I do. But I have managed in 40 years to always survive.
That's dope.
Definitely. We want to. I feel like we need a part 2.
Mr. Stewart, I'm gonna give you a piece for your first one.
Hey, that sounds like you got show.
Y'all, I need both of y'all to give me some addresses. I see my Mr. Pate. He already got it going on. See, Mr. Pate Sharp. He got his little piece on a diagonal on the wall back there. You see that little piece back there? Yeah. I don't know what you got happening back there. You got drawers hanging.
It's just my family. It's just a family.
Blue drawers on the left hand side.
No.
Look at him checking. Right?
No. That's just a bag.
That big. Look at that big white oppressive wall.
Mm-hmm.
You hear what I'm saying, Mr. Stewart? That's what I'm talking about. Next time it should be number color back there.
We're gonna work on that.
How you gonna be an unapologetic black man and you got a big white oppressive wall behind you?
It's behind me.
You see my background? You see my background?
It's behind me.
You see Mr. Pate got his nice little bookshelf in the middle back there. But that's the new world we live in, man. I'm telling you. I can't tell you how many Zooms I've seen, how many live presentations I've seen where people have my work in the background. It's just another whole space of exposure now.
Wow.
With this new Zoom and broadcasting world that we're in.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to get something and put it right behind.
I got you, man. I got you. Just need your address. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna give you a starter kit.
I appreciate that.
appreciate that, Mr. Brown. Listen, we're gonna have to get you on for part 2 because I don't think this is enough time to kind of dive into all the history and the wisdom and the experience that you have. So definitely, we're definitely gonna reach back out to kind of get a part 2 for this.
Not a
because
problem, man.
I've enjoyed this, especially this kind of learning more about not only yourself but just kind of like our culture period. And I think sometimes we have to continue to learn in order to continue to grow. That's one of the things I feel like, in my life, that as long as I keep growing, as long as I keep learning, I'm gonna keep growing. And if I can find out some more information that I didn't know yesterday, it's only gonna make me better, not only for my family, but for for myself first. Because
Well, we're gonna be. I told you, man. You are spawned from the strongest of the strongest, and what you do with that is completely up to you. It ain't got to be scripted. We just got to do the best we can do and press the boundaries of our comfort zone. Period.
Absolutely. And I'm most excited to hear about the golden age, because as you said, so much has been documented in this world of art that is so many different things. Like people, like you said, people want to call so many different things art. That's fine, but so many different things have been documented. But that is something that I really feel like we're missing. And when you started talking about that, I thought about the painting that's in the Good Times, the Marvin Gaye artwork on the albums, all of that stuff. These iconic things that we see and we know and we recognize, but we don't know the story behind it, the parties, the
Well,
ups and the downs.
this is what's so cool, man. What's so cool now is that you got musicians, you got artists, and they're all now venturing into to filmmaking.
Yeah.
Look at Questlove. He just did that whole documentary about soul thing. They found some
Yep.
films back in the day. He just won Oscar and a Grammy on putting that together. Look at Netflix. Look at Amazon Prime, and see the amount of documentaries that are coming out. And there's some really good stuff coming out where people are telling stories that we never heard before.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time. It's been a catalyst to me doing what I'm doing, but mine came from a conversation between two people where I listened and heard that's what I should be doing.
Yeah. I'm excited for it.
So my thing is we got to keep looking for things that's going to stretch the boundaries of what we do. I'm not a filmmaker, and I'm not a book writer, but then I am.
You are now. You are now. So once again, Mr. Brown, we want to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to join us. I want to thank Wendell Supreme. He kind of recommended you for the podcast. So
he's one of my mentees. Man, took him on a trip to Jamaica with me. He could hardly paint two lines together. Now the boy is blown up. He painting basketball courts. It's some exciting things happening in our community, man. I appreciate you guys highlighting what we are doing. But hey, man, I'm telling everybody, do what you do, but do it hard.
Absolutely. And we're going to end on that note. Once again, thank you for joining us for Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems. Make sure you follow us on all social media outlets. Make sure you connect with Mr. Larry Poncho Brown. All his information will be located underneath this interview in the bio. All that information. Follow us, like, subscribe, everything. Let's make sure we continue to push this narrative, continue to promote positivity in our community. Once again, thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Y'all take care now.
You too, brother. Peace, man.
All right.
Thank you.